Today what we're going to be talking about, as you guys see on the board here, is capital punishment and the death penalty. Can I go ahead and get a couple ideas of what you guys think maybe the death penalty is, or your views about it? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Pros, cons, maybe some alternatives. Okay. So,
Right.
oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, a lot, as you were saying, a lot of times the family members of of someone that they've killed, or the serial killers and whatnot, they do attend because it does bring closure to them, which is something that's pretty interesting about the death penalty. That was one of the main things that I was going to talk about, was definitely the population size. As you guys know, our jail system today, it's very overcrowded with people that some people that should be there and some people that shouldn't be there.
It could be an insult. I don't say just for the general population. I guess it challenges people's beliefs, I guess, and then it's kind of
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Because today, we're supposed to be very humanitarian about things, and this seems like something that's, not so humanitarian. Killing other humans is not always, what we consider the right thing to do. So I would definitely agree with that. And then the last thing I was going to talk about is some possible alternatives. Do you guys have any? Because I had one that I was going to talk about. Any alternatives? No.
I mean, there is a possibility that
Yeah, well, Cameron can't see that, but it says public service. A couple things that I was going to touch on, kind of like what you were saying about the public service, would actually be more like, have you guys heard about out in Arizona, how they have work camps, about how they actually, they manually work their way out of jail?
Yeah.
I'm a believer in that. I think that there's no problem with, pretty much working your time off. And not only is it, not only are you being productive in the community, when you have more stuff to do and more things to look forward to, it's going to better help them, prepare themselves for possibly getting out in society. Hey Chris, this is Riggs. I'm just here to give a brief spill about my teacher inquiry project and my results and kind of what my question and hypothesis was. So to start off, my subject question was, does implementing educational video games into curriculum actually improve test scores? And my hypothesis for that was that I did expect to see improved test scores whenever educational games were provided. I feel that educational games can do nothing except, further help educate them and apply, have different methods to help apply the material, and it gets them interested and involved in immersing themselves in the material. So some of my research and what I found, for one, I found a UCF survey or study that it was really interesting. It was mostly only for reading comprehension and English skills, but it found that compared to the control group, they received 5 more points out of 24, which is obviously fairly significant. That's about a 30%, 40% increase. So I found that to be pretty interesting. There was also some more research done about this, about testing conventional methods and conventional teaching methods compared to curriculum that was not exactly based on video games, but had video games involved in it. And that was pretty interesting because both teachers and kids both enjoyed it more. It said out of 72 kids, or out of 72 surveys, they found that 22 teachers actually favored the gaming immersion, and the kids also loved it. The kids had better scores in English, and some of them also had better scores in math, which I found really striking and interesting that both teachers and students both preferred it. I thought maybe teachers wouldn't really enjoy it as much because it is technology, and it is, it's tough to learn and tough to teach. But they liked it, and they found, obviously they found results in their students, and so they wanted to continue to keep teaching that way. Overall, I thought as a whole, I thought it was an interesting research area, and it was something that I was definitely interested in, and something that I would like to further look at. But after all, it did come out pretty clear that implementing video games into curriculum definitely helps students, and definitely gets teachers and students more excited about learning, and that's ultimately what you want. So that's that. Thanks, Chris. All right. Well, I'm here to present my final presentation on the federal budget and national spending. So pretty much I'm just going to run through the PowerPoint real quick and kind of touch on some of the things that I was going to talk about in class. I'll finish up a little bit with the discussion, some of the things that I thought was interesting about the game, as well as talking a little bit about kind of what I got out of it and kind of some things I was planning on talking about to the class, some perspectives that maybe some other people didn't really look at it as. So we'll go ahead and get started. The federal budget is the United States government's plan for managing revenue and spending on government programs. Pretty straightforward, I mean, we have to have revenue from taxes, and we have to spend money to keep things the way we like them. We're a big government, we like to spend a lot of money. So as you probably know, the President and Congress work together. President starts it off with a proposal, and then Congress kind of tries to, make compromises and make changes to it, and it goes back and forth constantly, between different committees, different parties. It's a real tangled mess, and that's why it takes up to over a year. It becomes, it's just really tangling. A lot of people have a lot of stuff that they want to have in the bill, and the pie's only so big. We can't get everything in it. So it's constant battling between what's important, what's not important, what we need, what we don't need, deficits and surpluses. We don't know too much about surpluses, but we definitely know about budget deficits, which is obviously a big deal. So the first step is obviously the President's proposal. He pretty much sits down with the Office of Management and Budget. They formulate a budget that they think is good. They try to prioritize what we need as a country, try to get an idea for plans for raising revenue through taxes. So trying to figure out what taxes we need, what taxes we don't need, how much money we need to sustain what we're doing in terms of government-wise, like infrastructure, government programs such as Medicare, Medicaid, retirement, those kinds of things. Those are obviously very important things we need and things we rely on. So the President has a pretty important job with trying to keep those things together. And this proposal is due the first Monday in February, which is pretty interesting because Barack Obama has yet to set up a budget. Actually, 2013 was his first time actually proposing a budget on time. So I guess we'll see how that goes this year. The second step is in the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it's called budget resolutions. And so pretty much they come up with a plan for the budget as well, and they just call it the budget resolution. So they just kind of piece together what they think is important and begin with that. Third step in this process is called the Conference Committee. And the Conference Committee brings the House and Senate together to resolve their differences with the goal of creating one final budget resolution that is a combination of both budget resolutions. So pretty much what the PowerPoint says, pretty much, obviously the House has their own, the Senate has their own, and they both, ultimately all you get is one budget. So they have to come together and kind of make compromises and figure out what they do and what they don't need. And again, I mean, that's a very timely thing. The Senate's not really used to
being quick about anything. They usually like to talk about things for a while, and the house is just so big that they have a lot of members that have a lot of different views. So as you can imagine, these two coming together is obviously something that is time takes so much time. So definitely something to look at. Then the last one is the appropriations of committees. The joint budget resolution is divided into specific categories of spending or appropriations. Each category is given to an appropriations subcommittee to pass an appropriation bill. There are 12 different categories. So pretty much what that is just 12 different committees that pretty much are created to have a stance or have a say, I should say, in determining the budget. So for example, you're going to have a military one, you're going to have one for health care, obviously transportation is obviously very important, education is very important, those kinds of things. They need money every year from taxes. They need federal spending money to keep things going the way they need to be going. So they need people vouching for them, telling Congress what they do and what they need, how much money they need, so that Congress has an idea of how much they need to be spending. Then the fourth step, then the step 5 actually is when the committees work together. So again, it's kind of the same thing. The House and the Senate are both coming together trying to figure out what, ultimately trying to just get down to one budget, trying to create something that both parties are happy with, that both houses are happy with, and the president's happy with, because ultimately no budget's passed without the president being happy, the Senate being happy, and the House being happy. So again, I can't stress enough how long it takes and just how long it really is. Then the final step, obviously, is the president signing it. The final budget should be signed by October 1st, so that doesn't always happen, but we try to get it by that time. It's not, there's a lot of vetoing that goes on. The president ultimately can decide, he can ultimately veto any bills that are in the budget. So a lot of going back and forth between the, both branches, the executive branch and the legislative branch, going back and forth, working together to try and, figure everything out. And so finally, kind of talks a little bit about tax revenue and what they spend. As you may know, we're $16 trillion in debt, which is an awful lot of money. I think there was a video that actually went along with this that showed it, but it was pretty interesting, and it's crazy to see the amount of money in the dollar bills or in the $100 bills that $16 trillion makes. I was I was floored by that. So that's pretty much it about the PowerPoint. Obviously, at this point, this is when everyone gets together, or not gets together, but works separately and works on the iCivics game to try to come up with a budget. Kind of get to see how hard it really is, and trying to make everyone happy. You ultimately, you want to please everyone, but that's impossible to do. And so, trying to figure out which people to please, which people not to please, it really gives you an opportunity. It really gives the student an opportunity to really see what it's like to be a congressman, and to see how hard it really is to manage all of these different things and bringing them all together and having everyone agree. Not everyone agree, but enough to make it pass and enough to make everyone happy. And that's probably one of the main things I was going to talk about as far as the discussion goes. I was going to talk mostly about how complicated it is, and that it was pretty interesting to me playing the game. Having to first set your taxes. You got to decide what taxes you want to have high, what taxes you want to have low. Ultimately, tax rates is what gives the government money, and so trying to figure that out ultimately determines the budget, because we can only spend, technically we're supposed to only spend as much as we bring in. which, as we all know, is not the case. But as I was saying earlier, probably the main thing that really struck me was how hard it was. You know, and as it says, you know, everyone wants a piece of the pie. Everyone has something that they're passionate about, and something that, you know, that they want money for, obviously, and that they feel like should be involved in the budget. And as we got to see in the game, you know, there's some stuff that's very important. There's some stuff that's just kind of stupid, to be completely honest. You know, I mean, there's a few times where, you know, you had to make decisions, and they were pretty easy. And then there were some where it was, you know, pretty hard. You know, you having to cut different programs that were important was, you know, I mean, it was almost like, you know, it was almost like pulling, you know, splitting hairs. So I thought it was a really good experience and opportunity to let people see how hard it is to create a budget, and you know, just an opportunity to try to to piece something like that together, and really gives us appreciation for what those people do in Washington, and that's about it. Thanks.